Right, 2 minutes to 10. I'll stop sharing once you're ready. Okay. All right, Kikairo, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Miza. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Just give me one moment. Can everyone see my slides now?
Yes.
Awesome.
But is it okay if you remove the floating
Everyone
box?
see my slides now? Sorry, Dr. Miza. There was a bit of an echo there. Can you repeat what you mentioned to me just now?
You have to remove the boxes. You see the floating box and everything. Yeah,
Is it better now, Doctor?
actually all of them. It
Oh,
covers your slides.
oh, is it?
Mm.
Just 1 second. I'm going to stop share 1 minute. Okay.
The best option is to not click share screen. Just say share your PowerPoint slides.
Share my PowerPoint slides. Okay.
Yeah.
How about now?
Second, it's loading. It's still the there you go. Perfect. Good now.
Oh, good, Doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I may begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. Welcome to the first part of the trilogy of the suicide prevention webinar 2024. And today we will be presenting a lifeline of hope, preventing suicide one conversation at a time. And let me introduce myself as well as my team members. So my name is Khairul. I am a clinical psychology trainee, and I will be the first speaker of today's webinar. And accompanying me are my two fellow peers who are Nur Fitriani, also known as Fitri, and also Amirah, which will be the third speaker for our webinar this morning. Considering that today's discussion will be sensitive and regarding the discussion and the topic that we'll be having can be considered as quite heavy. In other words, these are some of the gentle reminders regarding what we would like to be able to inform and what we would like to be able to remind the participants regarding the participation as well as the discussion that we'll be having in our webinar this morning, as well as in the next two webinars in conjunction with the suicide prevention webinars series. The first one is, as you engage with this webinar, please remember to stay mindful of your own well-being. If you feel the need, don't hesitate to take a short break and check in with yourself. The second reminder is, please do not hesitate to reach out to us or to mental health professionals if you find yourself experiencing strong emotions. Seeking support when needed is always encouraged. The third reminder is, this webinar is designed to be interactive, and we warmly invite and encourage you to participate in the discussion through the live surveys. And the fourth reminder is, please be courteous and respectful when communicating with one another in the chat box, because there will also be discussion in the chat box. So we would like to gently remind everyone to be courteous and respectful when we are communicating with one another in the chat box. Dr. Miza or the admin team, please let me know if the voice from my side is low, yeah?
Voice is okay.
It's okay,
Like,
Doctor?
yeah, it's okay. It's good for my side.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
very much, Doctor, for the
Oh,
confirmation. All right. So this is the general outline of our webinar this morning. We will be focusing on the prevention of suicide webinar, the suicide discussion or the trilogies discussion that we'll be having in the next 2 weeks. And in relation to the prevention webinar that we'll be having this morning, the overall contents we'll be covering the first one that will be covered by me, understanding the term suicide, and then looking at the factors contributing to suicide, and then early warning signs relating to suicide, as well as one of the major points of the discussion that we'll be having this morning is how do we want to be able to prevent suicide. So all of these four general contents of today's webinar will be covered with myself, my fellow peers Fitriani and Amira, and hopefully the discussion and the contents of our webinar today will be beneficial and helpful for you in understanding the prevention of suicide. And a little bit of an outline regarding the second series of the suicide intervention webinar, which will be held next week. So as you can see, there is already a QR code available on your screen now. You are more than welcome to register for next week's webinar that will be held by my fellow peers, as well as in the following webinar. So the general contents of the second webinar will be looking at the intervention of suicide, if prevention might be something that have already been addressed, and then that person might be actually experiencing what we call suicidal ideation, which is something that will be covered shortly by my colleague Fitriani. And then in this second part of the webinar, looking at how we will want to be able to help someone if we are a friend, if we are an employer, in different kind of roles and hats, so to speak. This will be the overall content for this particular second webinar on the intervention. And then in the third and final series of this webinar, it will be talking about suicide postvention. And if this is something of a new term that you might be hearing, then we would highly encourage and invite you to attend to this particular webinar, because this particular webinar will talk and discuss about how we would want to be able to support ourselves, how we want to be able to support the family members of the person who might actually be died by suicide. These are the kind of overall content and outline of this particular webinar on suicide postvention. So these are the three webinar series that we'll be conducting today, the following week, as well as in the next fortnight. So stay tuned, and hopefully there will be a lot of things, there will be a lot of information that you will be find helpful and engaging in this particular webinar series. So let's first and foremost begin the first part of our webinar this morning, looking at the story of Chad, which is a real story. And I will play a YouTube video, and hopefully there will be some reflections shortly that I will invite you to be able to engage in our live Mentimeter survey after looking at this video. A little bit of a disclaimer. As you can also see, the title of the YouTube video is this person's already attempted two suicide attempts. So as I have mentioned in the earlier part of the general reminder, since overall this topic is a sensitive and a heavy topic, if you would like to excuse yourself from this particular part of our discussion, you are more than welcome to do so. Nonetheless, hopefully this particular content of the video, which will be in English, will be beneficial and insightful for you. So let's have a look and watch this video together. Dr. Miza and team, please let me know if the sound is not working, yeah?
The only reason I'm here is a guy at a hospital made me believe that he believed that I might get better. He saved my life. I have found an enormous amount of peace. I know what that word means now. What a great thing. My earliest memories are being anxious, sad, terrified of life, of saying the wrong thing, of doing the wrong thing. My first suicide attempt was when I was 17. I was in a very, very dark place, had written the letters, and was on an enormous amount of medication in an attempt to try and stop that pain. And then I was taken to a mental health facility where I stayed for several weeks. I remember sitting in my room. I thought if I could be really successful in business, perhaps I could gain other people's acceptance and my happiness all at the same time. At 25, I have a nice big house, and me and my wife are driving Lexuses, and we have two beautiful daughters, and on the outside I looked beautiful. On the inside I was dying. I was falling deeper into depression and to my mental illnesses. We're on a cruise to Belize. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was a lost cause. So I swallowed 2 bottles of pills and drank Jack Daniels until I lost consciousness on that cruise ship. I did not wake up happy. I didn't see, oh, this is my great second chance. There's so much hope that can be found in Atrium Health mental health facilities. There was a nurse there. He talked to me, and he was nice to me. He believed that I might be able to get a little better if I did a few things differently. And I changed some of the focus of what I thought was important and would make me happy. I quit my job, and everything that I had built up around us was gone. We lost the house, we lost the cars. But as everything around me on the outside began to fall apart, my insides started to come together. I saw hope. So today, between eating healthy, taking my medications, and I play music when I run sound, and meditation, it gets me out of me, and I'm able to focus and be in that present moment. I run a support group because I want to try and help others find a little bit of peace and a little bit of happiness to make the world just a little bit better. When I try and get outside of myself long enough to help someone else, I feel better about me. What I tend to say, especially if someone is suicidal, is first of all, please know that you are not alone. There are many people that have been there who are still alive today and are living peaceful, happy, grateful lives. And I'm one of those people.
Okay, so that story, that video that we just had a look, was on a person named Chad, real name Chad, and he shared with the viewers of this particular video regarding what caused him to be in that manner of, he mentioned a state of depression, and then consequently, despite having a family, despite having a sense of financial stability, still there was that uh, hole. There was something that made him to attempted suicide, and these are the kind of situations that he faced initially, and then when he realized that he was needing some sort of help, he checked himself into a behavioral health center, or in other words, a psychiatric inpatient hospital or facility. And over there, the support that he had, the kind of things that he did, because he mentioned about needing to make certain kind of changes to be able to improve, to be able to see a different light, a different perspective of his situation. So that in a way is a little bit of a summary regarding this particular video, which I hope you are able to see as clearly as you can. And now I would like to hear from you, looking at the website of Mentimeter. So if you are able to use your mobile phone and then go to your camera function, and then if you are able to scan the QR code, that would lead you to be able to share just a few words in terms of your own reflection on Chad. And then we will be able to see in real life regarding what is your understanding of this particular story on Chad. All right. Thank you for the responses so far. So far, we have there is no health without mental health. No one goes to therapy to get worse. Absolutely, and that is something that myself and my fellow peers aim and would like to be able to assist or provide in the psychological services unit here at IIUM, regarding being able to assist someone when they do seek help to therapy, to be able to improve certain situations of their life. The next one, even you are successful materially, you may still have suicidal thoughts or ideations, absolutely. And because there are certain things that maybe we look at in our life, not just from a material aspect, perhaps there are other aspects that we may be looking for that we are still lacking, we feel, and potentially or coincidentally, that could be something that would feel us, hey, this is something that I have been trying to find but still could not find, to the point that maybe I feel that there is no hope in my life anymore, for example. So yeah, even if we are successful in certain aspects of our life, we can still experience or have suicidal thoughts or ideation. And then the next one is regarding what people show outside, so different from the inner side. And certainly this is something that can also be a lot of things that we do in real life, right? Regarding putting on different personas, regarding putting on different masks to be able to function, to be able to do things in certain areas of our life. So deep down, only we know the true self of the situation that we have in our life. So that is something that we can actually also have regarding this particular story. There's also someone who put the term resilience, and this is something that is absolutely true regarding being able to, in certain degree, bounce back with regards to the situation that we're in. Therefore, this is something that can also be a reflection that we can learn from this particular interaction with Chad. So let's see if there are a few more responses. Let me refresh. And we will have a look at a few more, and then we'll move on to the next part of our discussion this morning. Oh, okay. Oh, there are plenty more. Thank you. Certainly more than two or three. Let's see if I can choose some of the reflections that you have shared, and then we will certainly move on to our following discussion. Um, Recovering takes a lot of time and supportive environment. It can be scary and alone dealing with all this, since we are all living for the first time. Wow, that is really a philosophical approach or perspective regarding how we are all living for the first time. And I think that is something that is quite unique, but definitely regarding how recovery process itself, that takes a lot of time, and certainly having a supportive environment, be it in the family or in the environment that we're in to seek help. Just now in the story of Chad, in that inpatient psychiatric facility, that is something that he also obtained regarding the environment that he was in. And let's have a look regarding the other one that we can reflect as well. For a peer who had choose to end their lives, there must be great pressure that leads them to it. I see it as a great pain that finds no solution except for death to take away all the pain. And this is one of the reasons, this is one of the factors that we shall look at in our webinar this morning regarding the factors that lead a person to be able to attempt suicide. And certainly when it comes to them looking at the only solution to addressing the challenges that they have in their life, this is certainly one of the ways that they feel is the only thing that can do to resolve the pain that they have. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. The reflection of our video just now, my apologies that we are not able to go through one by one regarding the discussion that we have for this particular reflection on chat. I would like to be able to move on to the next content of my web or my part this morning regarding the definition of suicide. So according to the Canadian Mental Health Association, suicide means ending a person's own life. It is sometimes a way for people to escape pain or suffering. And the next 2 points is something that we would like to be able to emphasize regarding the language, regarding how we want to be able to term certain things when it is related to suicide. So when someone ends their own life, it is highly encourageable for us in order to break the stigma. One of the ways that we can actually mention when someone ends their own life, we are highly encouraged to say that they died by suicide. A lot of times we might hear people committed or completed suicide. These are some of the ways that potentially indirectly us in a way judging them, judging the person who actually did this particular act of dying by suicide. Therefore, if we want to be able to, like I mentioned earlier, in our attempt to break the stigma, as well as to be as neutral and as factual as we can, it is highly encourageable for us to say that that person died by suicide. And then in the next term, a suicide attempt means someone tried to end their life but did not die. So this is something that can also be a term that many of us can be mindful of when someone tried to end their life but they did not die. Then we mention a suicide attempt. So this is a bit of a language class, so to speak, regarding the definition of suicide. And just now, as I reflected in one of the responses regarding the reflections of the story of Chad, these are some of the risk factors, and this is something that was already been conducted by the National Death Suicide Registry back in 2007. It has been more than 10 years ago, and back as recent as last year, there was a news regarding the development of the suicide registry, which was supposed to be fully developed last year. However, to date, according to my research, there has yet to be that particular registry of suicide registry. Nonetheless, we will be looking at some most recent statistics provided by the World Health Organization as well as the Ministry of Health of our country. This is the risk factors that have been shared regarding what could potentially lead someone to attempt suicide. The first one is the seriousness of previous suicide attempts, and potentially that person might already be engaging in the previous suicide attempts. So that could also lead them to be able to have a bit more of a risk regarding the next suicide attempt that they might have. And we've also covered the history of suicide attempts. And then, as the story of Chad earlier, we could also see how severe hopelessness could also influence or increase the risk factors of someone to attempt suicide. And if there is any family history of suicide, this could also be something of an influential factor to that person to be attempting suicide. And histories of substance abuse and alcohol, as well as the history or the stressor, or in other words, the trigger of losing support or some kind of relationship separation. This could also be a risk factor that could lead someone to attempt suicide. And regarding the methods of suicide from the same registry back then in 2007, 51%, over 51% attempted suicide through hanging. Over 14% attempted to suicide by jumping from a building, and over 1%.
I am so sorry for interrupting you, but I think because of your internet connection, your slides are pixelated. So I'm going to share the slides on your behalf. Is that okay?
Absolutely, Dr. Miza. Thank you for letting me know.
Alright, thank you. I'm going to wait for a bit. I have not received the slides there actually. If you can share it with me, I am very sorry about this. I think
It's okay,
there's
Doctor.
something
No
internet
problem.
connection.
Yep.
For all our participants today, I hope that you can provide us for a few minutes just to basically correct this, because we do want you to benefit from it.
The audio was okay, right, Doctor?
The audio is perfect. It's just the
Awesome.
slides have been pixelated.
Understood. Yep. One moment, Doctor.
No problem. Alright, if you can just send me through WhatsApp, I'll be happy to share.
Yep.
Alright. All right. Um,
It's on its way, Doctor. One moment. Okay, Dr. Miza, have you received it?
Good. All right, okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. 1 second. Give me a few minutes. A minute. Give me 1 minute. Mm. You able to see?
Yes.
All right,
Thank you,
perfect.
Doctor.
So
And
you
then
are seeing?
can you click on enable editing just in case, Doctor?
Is that okay?
Yep. Thank you, Doctor. You can move on to the next slide, Dr. Miza.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. And also thank you, Dr. Miza, for rectifying the technical issue that we are experiencing. All right, so the next part is regarding the relevant acts in our country that could be possibly something that would be an eye-opener to everyone, especially in the most recent development that we had about more than about a year ago, especially in the Act 547. So there are two relevant acts in our country that is related to mental health in general. We have Mental Health Act 2001, otherwise known as Act 615, and then we also have Penal Code, which in other words, Akta Kanun Keseksaan in Bahasa Melayu, or Act 574. So let's have a look at the first act, just in general regarding Act 615, Dr. Miza. And regarding this particular act, it is something that constitute mental disorders and who can be considered a mental health patient under the law. And this is something that also includes the rights of patient, the rights of mental health practitioners as well, to be able to seek support, to be able to seek help in relation to their mental health situation. And the second point there regarding voluntary and involuntary admission, this act also consists procedures for both voluntary and involuntary admission to mental health facilities. So this is a little bit of a general information regarding the Mental Health Act 2001. Now let's have a look at the second act, Act 574, or the Penal Code, Akta Kanun Keseksaan. Next slide, Doctor.
1 second. There you go.
This one, I think I've also covered. Yep, thank you very much, Doctor. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, the Penal Code Act 574, or otherwise known as Akta Kanun Keseksaan. Previous slide, Doctor, sorry.
Okay.
And this is something in relation to the backbone of the criminal law in Malaysia, providing a detailed legal framework for addressing criminal behavior and ensuring justice is served. In relation to mental health in general, there are three sections that are applicable under this particular act, sections 305, 306, and 309. So the first section, which is section 305, this is on the abetment of suicide of a child or insane person. In other words, abetment means someone who might be actually experiencing or actually soliciting to a certain degree with regards to a person committing suicide, and in this particular situation, or even the term as we have already covered just now, died by suicide. Potentially, this could be something that could be discussed in the House of Representatives. Nonetheless, there is something of a separate discussion. And the punishment for this particular section is that person could be punished with the death penalty or imprisonment. And the next section, which is section 306, This is in relation to abatement of suicide. And back then, when this particular section was made, this is relation to someone who is not a minor or an insane person to actually attempt suicide. And for this particular situation, this is something that, as I will be covering later, this is something that has already been revised in the most recent approval by the House of Representatives, as well as Section 309, attempt to commit suicide, whereby this particular section criminalized the act of attempting to commit suicide. And if found guilty, the person will be imprisoned for a term that may extend to 1 year or a fine or both. So as we have a look at the next slide, on the 22nd of May 2023, the House of Representatives. Next slide. Thank you. So on the 22nd of May 2023, the House of Representatives approved the bill to abolish Section 309 of the Penal Code. And it is also something that they have already reviewed in terms of the importance of a person to be able to seek help, especially when they are attempting suicide, as well as for our country in an effort to break the stigma. They have already approved the bill to abolish Section 309 of the Penal Code. And then regarding the sections 305 and 306, they have already retented the offenses of abetting suicide under this particular codes. And therefore, this is something of a major victory in a way regarding the suicide discussion or situation in our country, especially when it comes to a person attempting suicide. The fact that they are not being punished because of them doing this particular action, this is a way for our country to be able to move forward, to be able to encourage the individuals who may seek help without being penalized or with it being criminalized in an attempt for them to be able to seek a better mental health. So let's have a look at the next slide regarding the statistics of current situation of suicide. Globally, the World Health Organization reported more than 700,000 suicides each year, with a higher percentage of death due to suicide than malaria, HIV/AIDS, and breast cancer. And in our country, the Ministry of Health by Institute of Public Health reported that 1 million individuals, which is equivalent to 4.6% in Malaysia, aged 16 and above, experience depression, and the number of individuals experiencing depression has doubled from 2019 to 2023. And according to the particular statistics that was made last year by our Ministry of Health Institute of Public Health, approximately 50% of the individuals mentioned experience thoughts of self-harm or believe that they would be better off dead. And let's also look at a different slide that could also look at a bit more specific, especially when it comes to the comparison that we can have a look back when in 2007, referring to the National Suicide Registry that I mentioned earlier, regarding the gender population, almost 70%, there was a bit of a typo there, of male experiencing or are at risk of suicide, and there was a reduction about 50% of female who were at risk of attempting suicide. And regarding the marriage status, almost the same, that female and male who are married and express intention to die by suicide to someone else. And this is something that if we have a look at the next slide, if we want to compare to the current situation in our country, in 2015, approximately 4.8 per 100,000 population, and in 2016, it increased to 5.0. Until in 2019, it gradually increased to around 5.6 per 100,000 population. So the suicide mortality rate in Malaysia has been increasing steadily as we have a look at this particular trajectory. And if we want to look at the state in the next slide regarding where, in particular in our country, we can have a look at, according to the most recent statistics from last year in National Morbidity Health Survey in 2023, the state with the highest number of cases is Selangor with 117 cases, and nationally on average, there were 4 suicidal cases every day, and up to 2021, there have been a reported of 460 cases of suicide attempts. So this is the statistics regarding the current situation. And if we want to look at the number of ages, we can see that the most current statistics shows that in terms of the ages, adolescents, 15 to 18 years of age, this group accounts for more than 50% with attempts of suicide. And then young adults, 19 to 40 years of age, this accounts for about 43%. And gender-wise, it's females with over 83% who have attempted suicide. And as we move towards the end of my section this morning, there's also something that I would like to be able to gauge your opinion before we smoothly transition to my colleague Fitriani's section. If we have a look at the next slide, Doctor. So this is my last reflection or discussion that we will be having for this particular section of my part. If we can also have a look or try to scan the QR code of what we shall call as myths or facts. This is something that we would like to gauge your opinion and your perspective regarding the statements that are in that particular survey.
Shall I stop sharing now?
Yep, Doctor, just for the time being. And then you can take over, Doctor.
All right, okay, sure, no problem.
Dr. Miza, I just shared my screen.
All right, it's still loading.
Loading, okay.
It's loading. All right. Oh, I can see, but it's pixelated.
Still pixelated, Doctor.
It's still
Oh dear.
pixelated. Yeah. Kalau buat macam ni.
Sangat pixelated
Oh. Is there a way you can share that with me ke macam mana?
Let me try. I can try to share it with you and see if that works.
I hope it will work.
One moment,
I
Doctor.
think you have to share me, like invite me to edit the monitor as well.
Although at the same time, Doctor, I am mindful of the time. If I were to share verbally in terms of the results, would that be okay, Doctor? Boleh, thank you, Doctor. Because I am mindful since the contents of my colleagues, Fitriani and Amira, are just as, if not more interesting than my part, because my part is filled with statistics. So I think in the interest of time, I'll just verbally share the results. So the first statement, he or she must be mentally weak and ill to consider or even think of committing suicide. Over 70% indicated that that's a myth. And then the next statement, once a person has intent on suicide, there is no way of stopping them. Over 90% mentioned that it's a myth and 9% indicated that it's a fact. Once someone is suicidal, he or she will always remain suicidal, and that is his or her personality. 97% indicated that's a myth, and the rest mentioned that it's a fact. A promise to keep a secret about suicide intention should always be kept and never be shared with anyone else. 75% indicated that's a myth. 25% mentioned that it's a fact. And only mental health professionals expert can prevent a suicide, and no one can do anything about it. None, meaning no non-health professionals or experts cannot do anything about it. And 100% mention that this is a myth. So we could see that there is a division in earlier statements regarding the perception of someone's mental strengths, regarding the person who might be experiencing suicidal ideation and intention. This would be the kind of discussions that we shall be having through my colleagues' sections and slide with Fitriani and Amira. So, Doctor, I could see that you have already taken over. Or am I going to stop share? Dr. Miza, you can take over the slide once again.
All right.
So as we are moving towards the final part of my discussion today, before moving on to Fitriani's section regarding the early warning signs that we might be able to look at. Next slide, Doctor. Thank you. According to Relate Malaysia, approximately 1/3 of individuals who died by suicide had previously expressed their intentions, either verbally or in writing. In other words, at least 30% of these individuals who died by suicide had given some form of warning about their intentions, suggesting that intervention could have been possible before the situation had occurred. So this is the main point of our part regarding preventing suicide that we would like to be able to emphasize, so that then we know that prevention is just as important as intervention, and most definitely postvention. So I'm going to pass on our webinar this morning to my colleague Fitriani, who is ready to share her part, and I'll pass it over to you, Fit. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Brother Khairul for the presentation. Okay, so good morning everyone, and thank you for being here today. Can I know, is my sound okay?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. All right. So my name is Nur Fitrani, and I'm a clinical psychologist trainee. So I resume our suicide prevention webinar today by focusing on understanding the progression of suicidal thoughts and actions, recognizing warning signs, and learning effective techniques we can all do in the prevention stage. So we can go to the next slide.
All right.
Okay. So as we talk about suicide prevention, so I wanted to introduce you guys to something called the Ideation to Action Framework. So it was developed by O'Connor and Portsky in 2018, and it helps us understand how thoughts of suicide can sometimes turn into actual attempts. So let me ask you, why do you think having suicidal thoughts doesn't always mean someone will try to take their life? So this framework actually tells us that while these thoughts are important, they're usually there when someone attempts suicide. They don't automatically mean someone is in immediate danger. So this framework is useful because we can understand the process, how suicidal thoughts can turn into plans and actions, and recognize these signs helps us to know when we can step in. And also by knowing the different stages we have here, which is ideation, attempt, and completion, so we can better focus our efforts, and this can make our support more effective. And also, this framework is backed by research, which means it's based on what really works. So as we continue, let's just keep this framework in mind. So can we go to the next slide? All right. So suicide doesn't happen out of the blue, right? So it's often the result of a progression from suicidal ideation to attempts. And in the worst case scenario, it's completion. So we have here three definitions of suicidal ideation: suicidal attempt and suicidal completion. So to make it easy to understand, the concept of suicide ideation means uh, thinking about or planning about suicide. And this can range from vague thoughts of wishing to die, having a specific detailed plan and intent. While suicidal attempt would mean when someone takes action to end their life but does not die as a result, and this is a critical point where intervention is also possible. And then we have suicidal completion. It's when the person successfully carries out suicide, resulting in death. So to be mindful of this webinar, as this is also a very sensitive topic, if you guys are not okay with the progression of this discussion, so it's okay to leave from this webinar for a while and then step in when you feel okay. All right, and the next slide. So our primary focus today is on suicidal ideation, as early intervention here can prevent the progression to more severe stages. The next slide. So how do you know it is suicidal ideation? So you can see that there are about six examples for how each of the signs to know if it's suicidal ideation. The first thing is thinking about methods. So someone might start researching online about ways to commit suicide, looking up information on lethal doses of medication, or they investigate places that are high risk for jumping. And then we have wishing to vanish. For example, a person may express a desire to simply disappear, saying things like, I wish I could just fade away, or I want to go where no one can find me. And then we have questioning worth. They might begin doubting their value or purpose, making statements such as, what's the point of me being here? Or I don't think anyone would care if I were gone. And then we have feeling helpless. So, for example, a person might talk about feeling stuck or powerless, saying things like, there's nothing I can do to change this, or I can't handle this anymore, it's hopeless. And then we have imagining reactions. So, they might start imagining how others would react to their death. For example, asking questions like, I wonder who would come to my funeral, or how do you think people would remember me? And then they might also feel the desire peace. So a person might express a longing for peace or an end to their suffering, saying things like, I just want the pain to stop, or I want to find peace, even if it means dying. Next slide, please. So how serious it is in this stage? So we have two definitions of suicide, two different categories of suicidal ideations. We have active and passive suicidal ideations. So active suicidal ideations means someone that have thoughts of suicide or self-harm with a plan to carry it out. But passive suicidal ideation means a desire to be dead, but without a specific plan. Okay, so when you recognizing when passive thoughts turn active is very crucial. So this shift can happen when thoughts become more intense and frequent. Okay, can we go to the next slide? All right. So how passive suicidal ideation can turn into active suicidal ideation is when thoughts get more intense and frequent. And when when the plan is already formulated, tools are prepared, or risky behaviors emerge. For example, when the thoughts get more intense and frequent, they actually start thinking about it daily or even several times a day, and they become more consumed by these thoughts. The next thing is formulating a plan. They might start thinking about specific ways they could end their life, such as deciding on a method or considering a time and place to do it. And the third example is collecting or preparing tools, like they might purchase a rope, or they collect pills, or they get a weapon to carry out their plan for suicidal. And then they express intent. They might start telling others about their plans, saying things like, I've decided how I'm going to do it, or making statements like, I won't be here much longer. And then risky behavior. The person might engage in dangerous activities such as driving recklessly, using drugs excessively, or taking unnecessary risks as if they no longer care about the consequences. Can we go to the next slide? All right. So I have a question for you guys. So do you think is passive suicidal ideation normal? You guys comment in the chat box. Do you guys think it's normal? Okay, Atika says it's not normal. Yes, he also says no. Sharifa says for a peer like me when relapse happen it is. Shira says no. Caroline also says no. All right. Thank you guys for the participation in the comment chat box. Okay. So yeah, passive suicidal ideation is not a normal thing to brush off. Okay, oh, Jamila is commenting saying that I think many people have suicidal ideation that is passive. Okay, thank you for the comment. Can we go to the next slide? All right. So passive suicidal ideation is actually not a normal thing. And if someone is experiencing passive suicidal ideation, it is a sign that there is something is going on. This could be associated with grief, mental illness, trauma, bullying, stress, and more. Although passive suicidal ideation is a critical sign to get help, it is not uncommon for people going through mental health challenges to experience some passive suicidal ideation. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, now we are about to learn the learn technique. So it's vital to know the first thing is L, look for signs. Learning to look for the warning signs of suicide. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so what do you guys know about the warning signs? Let's see some of your comment in the chat box. Collecting tools, isolation, expressing it, self-harm. Okay. Too much of anger. Okay. Very good comments. Not talking to anyone, staying silent. Yeah. What more? Changes in behavior. Oh my god, you guys are so smart. Okay, can we go to the next slide? So some of the verbal cues, there are many verbal cues, but this is just some that we're going to share in this slide. So some verbal cues would be statements like, I want to die, I'm a burden to others, or there's no reason to live. Talking about feeling trapped or in an unbearable pain, and say they have no reason to live. The next slide. Then we have feeling helpless, hopeless, and worthless. Also feeling tearful and overwhelmed by negative thoughts. Sudden calmness after a period of depression can also be a sign. Can we go to the next one? Actions. So some actions would be researching suicide methods, writing suicide notes, withdrawing from social contacts, and drastic changes in behavior. Do risk or self-destructive behavior or saying goodbye to people can all indicate a risk. Okay. I see there's a lot of comments. I see there's a lot of comments asking questions right now. We're gonna keep some of the comments until the end of the session. Okay, so we're going to continue a bit more. If you guys feel that it's a bit sensitive for you guys or a bit triggering, you can step up from the webinar and then come back when you feel better. Okay, practicing compassion. So this is where we can practice compassion. So compassion goes beyond just acknowledging the pain. It involves a deep sense of empathy and a desire to alleviate that suffering. So compassion drives you to connect with the person and take action to help. It is different from sympathy. Sympathy is more passive. It's about feeling sorry for someone, which can sometimes lead to pity, but doesn't necessarily lead to action. Compassion is active. It not only recognizes the suffering, but also motivates you to do something about it, whether it's through offering support, listening, or taking concrete steps to help the person in need. So, have you guys ever think of compassion as opening the door to understand someone's pain? Once that door is open, empathizing allows us to step inside and see the world through their eyes. Listening then becomes the way we walk beside them, carefully and attentively through their most challenging moments. So, let's explore how we can move from simply feeling compassion to actively empathizing and listening and create a safe space for those who need it most. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so empathizing and listen. So this is like the second step. The next slide. So can you guys share what are some unhelpful response when a friend says they are thinking about ending their life? You guys comment in the chat box. It's an unhelpful response. So because usually it's hard for us to say maybe to discern between helpful and unhelpful response. We're going to discuss about this. You guys give examples in the comments. Yeah, someone would say stop overthinking, overthinking killing, blah blah blah. Don't think that. Go ahead. Yeah, wow. That is. Why are you thinking about suicide when life is so good? She's just trying to get attention. It's forbidden in our religion. You're a Muslim. It's a sin. Okay. Thank you guys for the participation. Can we go to the next slide? Yes, for example, the unhelpful responses would be, why would you want to die? You have a good career, everyone cares about you, and then, but you're not even depressed, or like, can't believe you put that pain on your family. Can we go to the next slide? So these are some examples, things to say to someone who is struggling with suicidal ideations. So unhelpful would be the conversation that we have done just now in the chat box as well. And for example, like it scares me when you talk like that. How could you be so selfish? People have it a lot worse than you. And for example, like if you keep talking like that, I'll call the police, or I don't believe you. You have so many reasons to be happy. For something that would be helpful, empathizing and listening would be helpful to the people who struggle with suicidal ideations. For example, like thank you for telling me this, and also I'm not gonna leave. I can't imagine what you're going through, but I'm here to help. Who else can we talk to about this? And then what do you need from me? Can we make a safety plan? Or I'm not here to judge you. Can we go to the next slide? So there are like 4 steps approach to practice empathy. So Today, I want to share some powerful insights from Dr. Brené Brown, a renowned researcher and professor whose work who also has transformed how we understand and practice empathy. So she's been studying this for over 2 decades on exploring courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy. So through her extensive studies, she developed a practical four-step approach to practice empathy, which we will be discussing today. So the first thing is perspective taking, which is put yourself in their shoes. So imagine what other person is going through, but trying to see the situation from their point of view. So ask yourself, how would I feel if I were in their situation? So this helps you better understand their emotions and experiences. And then the second step is to stay out of judgment and listen. Avoid jumping to conclusions or making judgments about the person or their situation, but instead focus on listening actively and with an open mind. Let them share their thoughts and feelings without interruption or criticism. You're just there to empathize and listen. And then the next step is to recognize emotion in another person that you have felt before. So you can try to identify the emotions that the other person is expressing and connect them to emotions you have experienced yourself. This shared emotional experience allows you to genuinely relate to their feelings. The fourth step is communicate that you recognize their emotion. Let the person know that you understand what they are feeling. You might say something like, I can see that you're really hurting right now. Or it sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed. This acknowledgement actually helps them feel seen and understood. So when you use these steps, you can show genuine empathy, which is crucial to build trust and provide support, especially in challenging situations like those involving mental health or crisis. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, now, as we have already discussed about empathy, so we're here to discuss about active listening. So what's about listening? Okay, so supporting a loved one, a friend, a daughter, a brother, or anyone who is experiencing suicidal thoughts requires more than just hearing their words. It involves active listening. Okay, so this means being fully present and engaged to provide the compassionate support they need. So here are some ways how you can show active listening effectively. So the first thing is adopt an open attitude. So just start by approaching the conversation with an open and non-judgmental mindset. Let them know you're there to listen and understand, not to judge or offer quick fix. So you might say, I'm here for you. Please tell me what you're feeling, and I'll listen without judgment. The second step you can use is leaning in. Show that you're engaged by leaning in slightly forward, and this physical gesture signals that you are attentive and focused on them. As they speak, lean in a bit and maintain an open posture to show your genuine interest. And then show that you're interested. Use verbal and nonverbal cues to demonstrate your engagement. For example, you can nod occasionally and make affirming sounds like, oh, I see, or that sounds really tough, and use your body language to reflect your attentiveness. For example, you might say, I can imagine how difficult this must be for you. And then we have asking questions. Encourage them to share more by asking open ended questions. Avoid questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no. Instead, try asking, what has been the hardest part about what you're going through? Or how are you feeling right now? And then use verbal encouragers such as okay. Show that you're actively listening with short verbal prompts like I understand or tell me more. So actually these simple informations is very easy to do, and it helps the speaker, it helps the person feel heard and valued. For instance, while they're talking, you might say, I'm listening, to encourage them to continue. And then you can maintain eye contact. Keep gentle eye contact to show that you're fully present. Avoid staring, okay, which can be uncomfortable. Instead, maintain eye contact intermittently to convey your attentiveness. You could say, I'm here with you, while looking them in the eyes to reinforce your support. And then use appropriate gestures. For example, employ gestures to show your support and engagement. The simple gestures like nodding, leaning forward, or offering a comforting touch, if appropriate, can communicate empathy and attentiveness. For instance, if you feel it's appropriate and the other person is comfortable, a gentle touch on the shoulder or holding their hand can provide reassurance. So these tips are very useful as to how you can provide emotional support to someone during a difficult time. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so the third technique from Learn is A, which is ask directly about suicide. The next slide, please. So start the conversation and be direct in your questioning. So ask, are you thinking about suicide? And avoid saying things like, you're not going to do something stupid, are you? Okay. And then listen, actually listen. Use the active listening tips that we have just shared before. And then take all words, threats, or attempts seriously. And do not minimize their feelings. Instead of saying you're not going to do something stupid, right? Try to remain supportive and empathetic. A better response would be, I'm really concerned about you and I want to understand what you're going through. Can you tell me more about how you're feeling? And then you can reassure them that you're there for them and that they are not alone. So this can provide comfort and help them feel less isolated in their struggles. So say something like, I'm here for you and you don't have to go through this alone. We'll get through this together. How can I help you? How can I help to support you right now? And then this reassurance can help them feel more supported and less alone. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so the next tip is R. The R technique is removing the danger. Okay. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Okay, so next technique is about removing the danger. After you have asked directly about their intention, you have already assessed the risk. So if someone is at risk, it's very important to make sure they don't have access to dangerous weapons. Okay, and then you can offer to keep any guns or other dangerous items for them, such as knives or something, and then store these items in a locked safe to ensure they can't be used. So you can just say, I'm really worried about your safety. Can I help by keeping your gun, knife, whatever? And then in a locked safe for a while, this helps keep them safe from impulsive actions. And then you can also like handle medications carefully. For example, medication can also like be dangerous if they are not managed properly. If they have a lot of pills, try to help by removing any excess. Only keep a small amount of medication they need at the moment and store it in a locked place to prevent overdoses. Um, another example would be offer to help by locking up their medication or take some of it to keep it safe, and then remove harmful items. Remove any items that could cause harm, like sharp objects or anything else they might use to hurt themselves. So make sure these items are put away and not easily accessible. If they mention feeling like they might use something harmful, help them by putting away sharp objects or anything dangerous. Okay, so you might also say, I'm going to put these sharp objects away so they're not a temptation for you. All right. So by safely storing weapons and medications and also removing items that could cause harm, you can help reduce the risk and keep your loved one safer. So it's about creating a secure environment where they are less likely to act on their feelings. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so this is just like a simple summary. So we can ask and listen, take them seriously, keep them safe, offer help to remove items as methods for suicide, be there, shift focus on reasons for living, do not self-impose. Do not self-impose means you should avoid forcing your own beliefs, your own opinions, your own solutions onto someone else. So instead, focus on just supporting and guiding them based on their own needs and perspectives. avoid imposing solutions. Don't tell them what they should feel or do based on your own experiences or beliefs. Instead, ask open ended questions, listen to their own thoughts and feelings, and then respect their choices. Allow them to make their own decisions about what helps them to feel better rather than pushing your own ideas of what should work for them. And encourage them to find their own reasons for living and solutions rather than imposing your own reasons or solutions. And then you can share resources and do a follow-up. So share resources. My colleague Amira will also share some resources where they can get help, and you can also get these resources to share with your loved ones. Okay, and then you can also do like a follow-up, leave a message, call them, and continue the connection with them as well, to ask for about how they're doing. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Okay, the last techniques and the next level of care. So after immediate safety is secured, help them also to connect with a professional. Provide them with hotline numbers and other resources. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, the next slide, sorry. I think we've covered this. Yeah, ensure they know that where they can go to get help and offer to support them through their process. My colleague Amira will also share on this. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is like the summary for our learn technique. Look for signs, empathize and listen. Ask directly about suicide, remove the danger, and next level of care. So for Okay, so okay, reaching the end of my session. So remember, preventing suicide is about being present, listening without judgment, and taking action when necessary. Okay, so these are the tips that you guys can also implement. I'll pass the floor to my dear colleague Amira for our webinar today on how to learn more of coping strategies, hotlines, and resources we can share to the people we love. Thank you.
Thank you, Fitriani, for your sharing. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Voice is a bit muffled. Can you go closer to the mic?
Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. Right. So, thank you, Fitriani. I'll be continuing with coping with suicidal ideation. So, the question here is, what can you do for yourself? Next. So, before I continue with ways of coping, and I would like to ask the audience, what are some of the things that you have done for yourself lately that show kindness and care towards yourself in the face of adversities? You can share in the chat box the answer. So I can see some answer here. I cry, do some postcard writing, learn a new skill, giving myself time to rest, play badminton, eating something nice, treat myself with an ice cream. So yeah, swimming, brisk walk. All right. Thank you for those who are sharing. Hiking. All right. So basically, the reason I ask you is because this question is relate to the first step of coping with suicidal ideation, which is next slide. All right. So the first one will be self-compassion. So according to Christine Neff, self-compassion is about being supportive to oneself when experiencing suffering or pain, be it caused by personal mistakes, inadequacies, or external life challenges. So it's about being kind to yourself. And I can see that many of the answer is their own personal designate how people being kind to themselves. And the reason why self-compassion is important is because Christian discussed this from three components, which are, next slide, please. Okay, so when it comes to suffering, right, there are three components that you need to ask yourself. So the first one would be how people emotionally respond to suffering. So when we are being tested, it's easy to feel, it's natural to feel lost or isolated in a way that, especially in a situation where everyone is doing fine, but not ourselves. So we come to easily judge ourselves and judge ourselves for our inadequacies. So the purpose of self-compassion here is that it means to treat yourself with kindness and understanding. So it's not just about acknowledging that the situation is difficult for you, but also ask yourself, what can I do to help myself to get through this moment? And you can go back to the answer that you have give and share in the chat box. So by asking yourself, what can you do to yourself, is actually you give yourself to feel validated and also supported. Second component would be cognitive, how cognitively understand their predicament. So like I said, like the example that I give and shared just now about when we are being tested, it's easy to feel isolated because you feel like we are the only ones that suffering, but not other people. So in this situation, self-compassion can give you another perspective of looking challenges or suffering in a way that they are not only beyond our control, but most importantly, it is a human experience. So when acknowledging that suffering is human experience, it somehow give you a perspective that there is invisible string that connects human being to each other. And through self-compassion, we acknowledge that suffering is in fact a shared experience. And when it comes to shared experience, it creates a sense of belonging. So it gives you an idea that there is always people that you can turn to, and these people can provide you with a source of comfort and also strength. And the last component would be on pay attention to the suffering. So when it comes to pay attention to the suffering, individual can either do it mindfully or overly identified manner. So say for example, if we do not focus on our suffering mindfully, there is a tendency to over identify with our negative thoughts and feelings. So what I meant here is that, say for example, I made a mistake. So I have a thought that I made a mistake. But if I over consume or fixated on that thought, I made a mistake, it can turn into a belief that I am a mistake. So without self-compassion, right, this idea of I am a mistake will become something permanent in ourselves. So with mindfulness or being mindful of our suffering, it led us to recognize that our negative thoughts and feeling are just that. It's just thoughts and feeling. It doesn't define us entirely. So this is why mindfulness is crucial, because it gives us clarity and space for us to be kind to ourselves. Next. So these are some of the previous study that talks about self-compassion in relation to suicidal ideation. And of course, it lowered the levels of risk factor to suicidal ideation and self-harm, prepare ourselves to deal with a vulnerable situation. It reduces self-defeating perceptions, and also it provides individual with high perceived controllability. And all of these are actually relate back to being kind to ourselves, being mindful of our suffering, and also perceive suffering as a common experience. Next. All right, so this is the second coping with suicidal ideation. So safety plan. Before I begin, I would like anyone have done this or aware of what safety plan is? No. Okay. It's okay. Right. So safety plan is actually used and is actually useful for those who are at risk of suicide, in which in this list it contains coping strategies and source of support that individuals with suicidal ideation can use as a way to protect themselves. And previous study have also proven that these safety plans increase the safety of those who are at risk for suicide, because it's not only increase the levels of coping but also help seeking behavior. So there are 6 steps to create a safety plan. And for this webinar, I will be referring to next, please. Next slide. Right. I'll be referring to Stanley Brown safety plan. So I'll share with you with the steps, but in case that you want to keep this for your own reference, you can also scan the code on the slides over here. So the first step is to recognize the warning signs. So warning signs here can be like I believe my colleague Fitriani have explained earlier. It can be in terms of thoughts or images, thinking processes, moods, or even behaviors that relates to suicidal ideation. And in writing warning signs, you also need to ask yourself, like, what are the experience that you think when you start think about suicide, and also feeling depressed. And for the second step, it's more on focusing on the internal coping strategies. So apart from what can you do when you have the suicidal when you become suicidal again, is you need to also recognize what are the barriers for you not to engage in the coping strategies. So it's more on doing something that you can within your capability and you know that it is useful for you. And the third step would be social contact who may distract from the crisis. So the goal of this step is actually to distract you from the suicidal thoughts and feelings that you have. Say, for example, you have a friends that if you call them, you definitely know that they have so many stories. And from their stories, it will distract you from your own suicidal thoughts and feelings. And then moving on to the step 4, which is people whom I can ask for help during a crisis. So for this step, it can be family members, it can be your friends, or whoever is supportive of you and understand of what you are feeling. And then moving on to step 5, if say for example, some people don't have a friend or family, they can refer to step 5, which is a professional or agency that they can contact during crisis. So for the step 5, I will share with you like the resources later on. So in this step 5, it's more on say for example, we have here in Befrienders, we have Talian Hill as well. And of course, there is a private and also government hospital that we can ask for help. And the last one is step 6, which is making the environment safer. So it's more on, say for example, if an individual engage in self-harm, so it can be knife, it can be like paper even. So these are the items that you need to like separate yourself from. So put it in an area that you cannot reach. Next. So the third coping mechanism would be religiosity coping. So this is the man who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, or the meaning of life. Viktor Frankl. So he said that religious or other belief system may be one pathway to developing meaning and purposefulness in life, goals to achieve, values to respect, and ritual to follow. So for those who has read his book, you know that how important meaning is in life to continue life. And Victor here, he believed that religious can be one of the way to provide meaning and also continuous living. Next. So in terms of our religiosity coping, I will be discussing on 4 major religion in Malaysia. The first one will be Islam. So here are three ways that 3 acts that you can do if you are Muslim. The first one would be contemplation. So contemplation in Arabic will be tafakkur. So it is about focusing or maintain our mind on the existence of our God, Allah. And because this tafakkur, we engage in khushu or focus, it brings us close to Him. And when we feel close to Him, we feel secure. And in a way, it can also provide us with comfort and also tranquility. And secondly, will be purifying the soul, or tazkiyatun nafs. And for tazkiyatun nafs, Al-Ghazali has discussed this, and he said that to engage in purification of soul, Muslim should engage in acts of ibadah, avoiding the forbidden, and also being conscious of our Creator. So basically, back to tafakkur. And he also discussed on the 3 types of nafs or of self. The first one would be nafs al-amara. So nafs al-amara is something that we need to be in this life because it is focusing on the material aspect and we are living in the material world. So, but the thing is, we need to control it to not be too much. Say, for example, nafs al-amara, about, say, our desire to eat. So we need to eat to stay alive, but we cannot eat too much. And after we control our nafs al-amara, we go to nafs al-lawama, which is more on balancing our desire and also our conscience that lead to repentance. And last one, after we improve ourselves on that, we will reach a stage where they call as nafs al-mutmainnah. So this is a state of peace and serenity where all the due to the purification and also perfection that we done during the first 2 stages. So when we purify ourselves, in a way, it will provide us with the satisfaction, serenity, supreme happiness. And the last one would be tawakkul, or trust in God. So when we trust in God, doesn't mean that we do not do anything. We trust in God in a way that we believe in the qada and qadar, what within our ability and what is not. And we believe in His plan. So it focuses more on our self-regulation. So we try our best, whatever within our capability. So also, I feel like I need to mention this as well. When I discuss on religiosity coping, right? It does not mean that one's faith of iman is insufficient at the moment, but it simply means that these are some of the helpful ways that we can draw strength from to cope with the feeling of hopelessness from the suicidal ideation that we have. And the strength that we can draw is from religion itself. Next. The next one will be on Christianity. So similarly, we Christians can also rely on God. So when you rely on God, again, you know that He is the best planner, and you do whatever within your capability. And by relying on God, it can heighten our hope, sense of control, and also strength. And because we know that He is there for us. And secondly, Bible reading and prayer. So sometimes people can find comfort in in Bible, because that is one way of God communicating with us. And last one would be attending church. So attending church, it means that you are mingle with other people. So when mingling with other people, there is a collective effervescence, and also it can provide you with a protective factor against the hopelessness and also loneliness derived from the suicidal ideation that one might have. Next. Moving on to the third religion, which is Hinduism. So the first one is upholding the Dharma and Karma. So maybe perhaps someone might be not familiar with the term. So Dharma is more on responsibility and the role one play in life. So by focusing on our purpose, we can find meaning in times of difficulties. So back to what Frankl has emphasized on, when we have meaning, we can continue living. And karma is about, it reminds us how our actions have consequences. So by embracing these two principles in a way that we can find strength and also ways to moving forward. And second ways will be understanding the concept of ahimsa. So ahimsa is, the translation will be non-violence. So for when it comes to suicidal ideation, sometimes it involves violence. So by embracing this concept of ahimsa, we remind ourselves to preserve and also respect life, not only of others, but also ourselves. And the last one will be samsara and also moksha. So samsara is represent the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So it's also in this cycle, it's also involved some suffering. So in the context of suicidal ideation, it can be referred as a form of suffering. So when individuals suicidal ideation, they can stuck in this suffering, don't know what to do. However, with the concept of moksha, which means that freedom of this cycle, it encourages people to engage in activity or acts such as religious duties, reminds us of our moral rights and duties to engage on in order to escape from this samsara and eventually achieve moksha. Next. Next, religion would be on Buddhism. So in terms of Buddhism, based on this study, the author has categorized 3 ways of coping. The first one is meaning-making coping. So it relates to the concept of karma and also dukkha. So karma, again, is the belief that our action is influenced by our past, and our action now will be influencing our action in the future. While dukkha, what's this? While dukkha, it's more on the suffering. So by understanding these two concepts, we see our present as suffering as a consequences of our past karma. And it makes us understand why we face such challenges in our current life. So this understanding can make us can make the current difficulties more manageable as it as much as it offers us a sense of control of our circumstances. The second one will be meditative coping. So for this meditative coping in Buddhism, there are two types. The first one will be insight meditation or vipassana bhavana, and the second one will be concentration meditation, samatha bhavana. So for concentration meditation, when it comes to suicidal ideation, they will usually introduce to metta meditation, which translated as loving compassion. So this meditation, it helps the individual to calm their mind, maintain peace and also stability. And this is especially useful for people to manage the feeling of hopelessness or despair. As for the insight meditation, it's more on understanding the reality. So, for example, in this vipassana bhavana, one will observe their own thoughts and feeling without judgment. And from there, they can gain a deeper insight about themselves. And the last one would be ego transcendence coping. So in Buddhism, there is a concept of there's anatta. It's supposed to be anatta, which means non-self. So this principle believes that the self is not permanent, but rather something that is dynamic. So this includes form of individual, form of the self, feeling, perception, mental formation, and also consciousness. So by letting go that not everything is permanent, it gives us perspective that same goes to the suffering itself, and perceive it as a human experience. Next. All right, so next we're moving on to the spirituality coping. So some might wonder what is the differences between religiosity and also spirituality. So all spirituality is more on the personal connection and finding meaning in life, which sometimes it may involve religious belief, sometimes it may not. But religiosity itself is more on practicing and also living according to specific, say, teachings, belief, or rituals of religions. But of course, some religions does not separate between spirituality and religiosity. For example, Islam itself. So there's no distinction between thoughts and action, but it is thoughts and action should come hand in hand. Say, for example, if you believe in Allah, you should also practice the practical teachings. As for coming back to spirituality coping, so since it provides meaning and also build connection with, it can be a sacred or transcendent being, it also provide one with hope and sense of intimacy with other people. Next. So these are the ways or how to engage in spirituality coping. So first one, we have personal domain. So when it comes to personal domain, it's more on individual engage in deep introspection, which means that they get to know their own self. So, but through this introspection, they can identify their own weakness and use this knowledge to acquire knowledge and strive for peace and also harmony. And the aspect of spirituality in this domain is more on recognizing personal limitation and work on self-improvement. The second domain will be on social, which means that maintaining connection with other people. And this connection is not just a mere connection, but rather something that is deep and also meaningful. So the spirituality in this context will be being empathic, compassionate, and also engage in love to sustain a supportive connection and also relationship with people around us. The third one is religious domain. So for religious domain, although like I said, there are some that separate, there are some that are not. For this religious domain, it's about maintaining the relationship with God or supreme power. So when we are being connected with God, supreme power, it provides us with this deep sense of connection. And through this deep sense of connection, we will also be supplied with guidance, comfort, sense of purpose. And the last one would be environmental domain. So for environmental domain, as I said earlier, when it comes to spirituality, it can be connection with other than supreme being or God. So in this case, it is about it emphasizes on the connection with nature. So when it comes to nature, right, we observe the nature. We sometimes can witness the miracles and the wonders that the nature can offer. And through this observance, it inculcates respect and also appreciation towards the nature. And if we relate this to religion itself, for those who believe in religion, it will instill in us about the appreciation towards God's creation. But for those who does not believe in any belief system, nature can serve them as a source of inspiration and also provide them a sense of solace or tranquility. Next. These are other two ways of engaging in spirituality coping, which is meditation. So since meditation focusing on the mind, which is to achieve calm and clarity as well as concentration, it also can be used as a tool to increase our spiritual growth. And since it allows us to find our inner peace, and for those who believe in God, it will provide a way to connect with with God and also our own self. As for the reflective journaling, it's more on being aware of our own thoughts, emotions, and experience. And by being aware of this, by increase this self-awareness, it allows us to strive for personal growth and also connection with our own self. So in a way, this will also guide us to increase our own spiritual journey by acknowledging what are our spiritual needs and also desires. Next. And the fourth coping would be on reaching out. So these are four categories that we can reach out to. The first one, we will have professional help. Next. So this like a guide how you can reach for professional help. So for example, if you go for KK or clinic kesihatan or governmental health clinic, you get the referral to see a mental health specialist. And for this, you may need to pay for RM1. And after it has been confirmed, you can set the appointment. And once you get the appointment, you can either go to the government or semi-government hospital in which the first visit they usually require you to pay for 5 ringgit, especially if the referral is from KK, but 30 ringgit if the referral is from private clinic. But afterwards, the session will require you to pay 5 ringgit. But if you go to university hospitals, there are 6 that I am aware of, which I will list in the next slide. However, if you yeah, so these are the hospital. Some of you might want to screenshot just for further future reference, because it has numbers here that you can contact. Next. Okay, so this also under professional as well, but this one are private and NGOs. So I try to list as much as I can find, and these are some of the private mental health clinics and also NGOs that you can also, if you need to screenshot, you can screenshot and use it for your future reference. Next. Second page. Right. So this is the second entity that you can reach out to, which is in terms of hotline crisis. I have compiled and also make it in the map form on which number you can refer to. So we have in KL, we have in Muang and Johor, Kota Kinabalu, and so on. So, and of course, if you refer down there, right, there is numbers that you can call that is available for 24 hours under befrienders. But if you want to use Tali and Heal, it available from 8 in the morning until 12 midnight. Next. So this one, if you reach out to family and friends, I use this like a template from the JET Foundation on how you can reach out to your family and friends. But make sure that when you choose a person, it is someone that you know can help you and also reliable and supportive. So for example, the first sentence will be, I am feeling anxious to tell you this, but I really need to get it out. It might take a minute to find the right words. And after that, followed by these three, either one of these 3 sentences. So it may be hard to reach out for someone, especially if it's the first time. And you might want to use this if it's helpful for you in the future. Next. These are the resources that you can take home perhaps from this webinar, the first part of this webinar. Next. I have attached like a QR code here. It's a suicide prevention kit which contains of there is a crisis plan, there is a self-care activities, there is mindfulness activities, and is made by our own CCSC in IIUM. It's very helpful. I'm sorry I cannot show you here. Forgot to add the picture, but yeah, you can take a screenshot of this as well. It is very useful. Next. So these are under Selanka. It's an app, by the way. You can search Selanka on Google Play and also Apple Store. So it does not only provide you with a mental health screening that you can do by your own, but it also provide with psychoeducation videos, and there's a lot of it that it covers, many topics. And also there is a like guide what you can do when you feel stressed or other stressful situation basically. And you can also at the end of very left, so very right, yeah, there is also psychiatry subsidy screening which can be helpful for people who need it as well. Next. And currently, we also provide these services from PSU, Psychological Services Unit in IIUM, just in case some of you that might need help as at this very moment. So you can also screenshot this and also scan the QR code to register yourself as part of, steps in being compassionate to your own self, and also in a way helping yourself. Yeah. Next. So I would like to end this session with a quote by um, Eric Roth. He is a writer in the movie of The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. So basically, he said that I hope you live a life you are proud of, and if you find that you are not, I hope you have the strength to start all over again. So strength here can be derived from one of coping methods that I have shared with you, and hopefully, if any of you are suffering, we are able to start all over again. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Amira. I think we can address the questions now for all the participants who are here. And right. We gathered some of the questions for you guys, so that actually the first question, if I can ask, will we be able to share the slides? Is it okay for us to share the slides with all the participants here through the WhatsApp? Is that okay to the presenters?
Yep, I am okay.
Alright, great. Thank you. Right, for all the participants here, if you guys have any questions, feel free to write in the chat box. You can also unmute your mic, but also be mindful as well, possible.
Dr. Miza, there is a question from one of the attendees asking about attendance. So
Ah,
how shall we answer this question?
yes. So yeah, I think we're going to proceed with the question first, but regarding the attendance, of course, I can share with you. So we're going to basically provide you with the QR code and also going to basically do some promotion for you as well. One second, I can just share. Mm. Thank you. You can see the screen right now. So thank you so much for joining us today. While we're also going to address all the questions for the participants today. If you guys can just scan the QR code, or we will actually provide you the link in the chat box soon. Alright, so for the QR code, if possible, just scan it and then just fill in the details. Especially, please pay particular attention to your name. Make sure that you have the correct spelling for your name, because this one will be written in your certificate, which we will send to you through email as well. Make sure as well that the email that you share with us is also the correct email address, so otherwise you won't be able to receive it posted. Alright? Mhm. Share the program. Mhm.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Miza.
Mhm.
Yeah, can I address to answer some of the? I think there were two questions during my session.
That's true, there were questions. Go ahead, please.
Can I answer it now?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. Okay. So there are like two questions regarding during my session. So the first question was about is self harm exclusively mutual with suicidal ideation as well? So self harm actually can exist without suicidal ideation for some individuals. So self harm is sort of like a coping mechanism to manage overwhelming emotions, distress, or to feel a sense of control. So in these cases, the self-harm is actually not driven by a desire to die, but it could be like something that rather to manage intense feelings or emotional numbness. However, even in the absence of suicidal ideation, suicidal intent, self-harm could be like a risk factor for suicide as well. And it's important to also monitor for any signs of escalation or changes in behavior. Okay, so the second question was about does talking about death or dying freely can be considered a sign? Well, talking about death or dying can also be a sign of distress, but it doesn't always indicate suicidal ideation. So context also matters lah. So if someone is expressing thoughts about death in a way that perhaps reflect hopelessness, a lack of purpose, or a desire to escape. So it might be a sign of passive suicide ideation or probably depression if you get diagnosed. And then like frequency and tone, for example, like frequent discussions about death, especially if they are increasingly detailed or like focused on the individual's own death. So it might indicate a shift towards active suicide ideation in some cases. So individuals might talk about death in a philosophical or abstract way without any personal suicidal intent. But these conversations perhaps should not be dismissed and maybe should be explored further to understand the underlying thoughts and feelings. That's my answer for the two questions.
Thank you.
All right.
The second question. Right, so for this e-certificates, we will provide via email. So again, please scan the QR code to make sure that you are able to fill in the attendance form. Otherwise, you can also actually click the link that has been provided in the chat box. Um, right. Okay. For the other participants who are new here, do you guys have any other question to ask to our presenters here, Ms. Fitriani, Cik Khairul, as well as Ms. Namira? While I have your attention as well, allow us to actually promote. Oh, there's actually a question from Cassie Long saying that can a person who recovered from suicide after many, many attempts, normally how long will they recover? So I think that's a two-part question. Like, can a person actually recover from suicide and how long will they be able to recover? Kenny, Hairul, and Amira, each of one of you would like to answer this question?
If I may, Dr. Miza,
Go ahead.
and certainly my colleagues, Triani and Amira can also contribute if they would like to. So for this particular question, the first part, which is can a person recover from suicide after many, many attempts? And I could see that the number of attempts is the keyword there for this particular part of the question. Yes, they can. And when it comes to the second part of that question, normally how long will they recover, and the number of attempts that they have made in the previous history, that could also be something of a subjective matter regarding how long that person will take depending on the number of factors, such as what Amira mentioned earlier regarding their coping mechanisms, as well as what Fit also mentioned earlier, Fitriani mentioned earlier regarding the environment that they're in, the kind of supports that they receive. So there are a lot of contributing factors that could determine how long that person will take to recover. Nonetheless, the more supports that they have, the more belief that they also have within themselves, that could also be some of the crucial factors in determining or influencing how long that person will take to recover. So that would be my response to that particular question. If Amira or Fitriani would like to add, they are more than welcome to do so.
Yes, I do think I agree with Brother Cairo's answer. So it's the same answer as well. How about Amira? Yeah.
Mhm. Also, if I can give attention to the participants today, I feel like, Mira, as well as Brother Khairul and Miss Fitriani are actually currently our clinical trainees at psychology services unit, IIUN. We currently still offer sessions for all our, for everyone actually in Malaysia and even abroad actually, because we do have online session. Hopefully you can basically give attention to our services. We also have a website, actually Instagram account, PSU clinic that you can follow. Right? If you are interested, you can basically just follow us on Instagram and you can immediately WhatsApp us to ask us for our session and then we can immediately make a booking for you, all right, within the week. Mm. There's another question by Priscilla Teresa. It says here, what to do if a person with suicidal thoughts were not ready to listen to us and badly wants to talk about a bad decision by ending their life? So for any other trainee who is actually currently here, Triani, Khairul, or even Amira, you guys are more than welcome to respond. And shall I repeat the question? Is the question asked, what to do if a person with suicidal thoughts are not ready to listen to us and badly wants to take a bad decision by ending their life?
I would like
Would you
to
like to go
answer
ahead?
that.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Go
Brother
ahead.
Carrie, would you
No,
like
no,
to answer?
I was asking if you like to go ahead, Fit, so you can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the question was about what to do if a person with suicidal thoughts are were not ready to listen to us and badly wants to take a bad decision by ending the life. So I think we have discussed this and covered this in our sessions just now. So when someone with suicidal thoughts is not ready to listen, and you can already assess that they are in an immediate danger of making a harmful decision, so what you can do is ensure immediate safety. What you can do is stay with the person. If you are physically present, don't leave them alone. Because your present can provide a sense of connection and support, and also remove access to means. So, if possible, remove any objects that could be used to harm themselves, such as weapons, medications, or sharp objects. We have already shared the resources, the hotlines. You can call them for help. Have this as backup for any time. It's not just the resources that we have just shared just now, the hotlines. It's not just for them, but it's also for you as well. So you can use like a backup to call for help. If the situation is critical and the person is at immediate risk, you can just contact them and provide them with all the necessary details so they can respond quickly. Also, if you are unable to stay with the person, contact someone who can, someone that could be such as a trusted friend, family member, or neighbor. Do communicate with compassion, listen without judgment, express your care about them, and offer alternatives, and yeah, follow up on them as well after that. And what you need to also remember is to take care of yourself also after because it could be draining. So supporting someone in a suicidal crisis can also be emotionally draining, so make sure to seek support for yourself as well, whether through friends, family, counselor, or even a clinical psychologist as well. Okay, that's my point. How about Cairo? Maybe he wants to add something.
Thank you, Fit. There is a follow-up statement I think made by Miss
Priscilla.
Priscilla. Yep,
Mm.
whereby she added, "What if we are not with them in that moment?" So I suppose this could be something for us to also, and for Miss Priscilla to also look at the kind of dynamic that we might have with this person if we are, for example, a family member, and then referring back to my initial, reaching out to the safety person as what has already been commented by Dr. Jamila Hanum is also one of the things that you can do. At the same time, if we are also able to relate back on the Mental Health Act 2001 that I covered just now, if that person is someone who is close to you, a family member, someone who you believe you might have the kind of, in a way, say or authority in contacting the relevant authorities for them to do what we call a well-being check. Potentially, they could also be able to assist that person if you are not with them in that moment, because the relevant authorities, for example, the police, might be able to help that particular person further by bringing them over to the nearest hospital, for example, for further evaluation and assessment. So yeah, and also definitely reaching out to their safety person is also something that you can do as well.
Thank you, Brother Guido, for the answer, and also thank you, Fitri. I think we can address one last question because it's already 12 o'clock. So, Dr. Jamila is also actively responding.
Yep, thank you,
Such a
Doctor.
great supervisor. So the question is that how to protect our mind and people from ideation of suicide?
Absolutely. As per Dr. Jamila's response to this particular question, to each is her own in a way regarding, our mind, regarding the thoughts that are in our mind, and the fact that we would like to be able to stop our mind from thinking about intrusive thoughts, which include suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts. That could be something that could reach a degree of impossibility or difficult in terms of stopping certain thoughts, especially uncomfortable or intrusive thoughts to come into our mind. So rather than having the intention or having this kind of aim to be able to stop ourselves or to be able to, take care of ourselves when it comes to experiencing suicidal ideation, possibly looking at in this particular purpose of webinar, in the prevention methods as mentioned by Fitriani as well as Amira, there are plenty of ways for us to be able to preserve, to be able to, in a way, hopefully prevent our mind as well as the people from experiencing suicidal ideation. Nonetheless, a little bit of a teaser, in our subsequent webinars conducting by our colleagues in the intervention as well as the postvention webinar, there will certainly be a lot more content, a lot more relevant categories that we can also look at when it comes to helping ourselves to help other people a little bit better. So yeah, hopefully stay tuned, and hopefully you are also able to join in the second and third part of our webinar trilogy.
Right. Thank you so much. And I think that will be basically the last question that we will address. Just a reminder for our participants here, inshallah, we will have basically our next session, on same time, actually, next Monday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Please keep basically monitor our WhatsApp group that you have joined, and then we'll provide you updates. Also do promote our service, Psychological Services Unit. And I would like to thank, of course, Fitriani, Khairul, and Amira for greatly preparing, an extensive content covering about, suicide prevention. Inshallah, next week we'll be covering about suicide intervention instead. So what to do when you actually have someone who is actually really in need of help. Right, okay. Before we end, shall we have a photo session with all our participants here today? So if any of you are ready, so I send you the backdrop for you to use if you are, of course, would like to have a nice, lovely backdrop. All right. Okay, I'll give you some time to allow you to open your camera. Mm-hmm. All right, Kate. All right, everyone, thank you so much. It's lovely to see everyone's faces. Thank you for your active contribution. Thank you so much for actually joining us here, asking questions. Oh, that's okay. If you don't know, it's okay. All right. We'll try to nicely edit it later on. Mm, okay. Okay, is everyone ready here? I hope so. Okay, I hope everyone's ready here. I think I'll give
I
you.
can't change it.
All right, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Thank you so much, Roha. It's nice to see everyone here. All right. Okay, yeah, I think a few more are joining us, inshallah. If everyone can be patient with me, I'll take the photo once everyone is ready. All right, okay. Lovely to see everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I shall take the photo now. Okay, smile, the biggest smile that you can provide. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. So thank you once again to Fitriani, to Khairul and Amira for joining us. Inshallah, next week we'll have another session. I hope everyone will be able to join us. We will be sending you the feedback form. So do let us know how we did, and also please if there's any room for improvement, let us know as well. Take care. Assalamualaikum everyone. Have a lovely, lovely day. Bye.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you,
Waalaikumsalam.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you. Have a good day. Cheers.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.